Well, thank you for having me, everybody. I'm very excited to be here today to share with you really Acumatica's Manufacturing Edition, but what makes it so powerful and a differentiator in the market today. Like I said, just a couple of setup slides here, and then we'll dive right into the demo. But when we take a look at Acumatica's Manufacturing Edition, these are some of the most common industries we tend to play in. Discrete manufacturing is typically our strong suit. We also play very well in the batch process manufacturing space. And we also have recently brought on Batch Master. If you're familiar with that software product, they are going to be extending much more of the process manufacturing capabilities for us. So electronics, industrial machinery, medical devices, food and beverage, cosmetics, those are some of the industries where you'll see Acumatica really tends to shine. Now, as far as what types of manufacturing do we support, these are just a few examples of those manufacturing types. I'll take you through an example today using something like a make-to-order scenario, but make-to-stock, engineer-to-order, project-centric, job shop, batch, repetitive. These are all instances or, I guess, environments within manufacturing that Acumatica can absolutely support. Now, I'm going to dive right into the demo from here. This is just really how I wanted to tee up where we'd be going. So let me take you over into the software, and we'll go ahead and get started. For those of you that have seen Acumatica before, this would be me logging into Acumatica. I would have my home page here. This happens to be a customer view dashboard that I'm looking at, but each role within Acumatica is separated by securities and permissions. So for example, if I'm a production manager that's working out on the production dashboard, I might have a dashboard that looks something like this. Oops, that's actually not the one I wanted. I want my manufacturing dashboard here. So instead of me seeing, orders out there that need to be shipped and what our AR looks like at this point in time, maybe I'm more concerned with assemblies that need to be built. What does our capacity look like across our work centers or our lines right now? So you'll certainly have dashboards to act as a home base for anybody that is using Acumatica, not just those on the manufacturing side of the house. Now, before I take you through a workflow example using Acumatica Manufacturing, I do like to start by just introducing you to the bill of materials in Acumatica. There's really two core modules. When I say core modules of Manufacturing Edition, that's anybody that purchases Acumatica Manufacturing, you're going to get bill of materials, and you're also going to get production. We have several optional modules like MRP, Material Requirements Planning, our Product Configurator, a Manufacturing Estimating module, but those ones are optional, so we only ask you to pay for them if, of course, you are using them. So this can be really a puzzle piece situation where you start with what you need, and then you can build modules on top of that. Now, I'll take you into my bill of materials here, and you can see I have a number of bills sitting out there, and I'll just pull one from the bottom of my list. And bills of materials in Acumatica. The reason that I like to start here in a demonstration format is because seeing the bill really helps us understand how we are going to use this information on the production side. And actually, let me see if I have a bill that has a couple more operations in there. It might be more fun to look at. There we go, a little bit more exciting. Okay, so in this example, you can see that we have a Keurig, happens to just be a generic demo item in there, but this would be the finished good that we are building. Within Acumatica, you can have multiple bills for the same item. Maybe you have multiple facilities, different design specs. You could have multiple bills, but you can also have multiple revisions against that bill. So if I don't know, swap out a certain component part that is no longer being utilized, I might create a revision B, throw a new effectivity date in there, and we can store that history, go back and use it at any time. We do also support full engineering change control. So if you actually wanted to send this bill through a change request process, get that approved, create a change order, get that approved, we also do the full engineering change control inside of Acumatica. Now, for the center of the screen here, these would be our operations or our routing steps. In other words, what do our shop floor workers need to do in order to create this finished good? And in this example, it's an assembly step, followed by an inspection step. You might have 40 operations in here. If you make, I don't know, doors or cabinets and you're doing the design and then the cutting and the sanding, all of those different operations can be broken out, but then you can also do things like layer your costs against those operations. So if every time I do an assembly, for example, in Work Center 10, we would like to charge a standard labor rate, I can go ahead and set that up here at the Work Center level. Now, beyond just the operation, the timing, the costs, the labor, you're also going to see down at the bottom of my screen that these are a few areas, the materials, steps, tools, overhead, and outside processes that are also related to the operation that I have highlighted. So for example, when I am in this assembly operation, I can see all of the components or materials that would be needed. These could be sub-assemblies, so we absolutely do support multi-level bills of materials and nested bills as well. If I go over to the inspection step, just take a look that I don't necessarily have any materials tied to that step. So we can, again, with our costs, with our material issues and releases, we can start to get very granular if we would like to. I also would like to make the comment that if you are a very simple manufacturer and you do just have one step, and maybe it's called assembly, maybe it's just called manufacturing, and you're really doing more of a kitting type of process, absolutely fine. You can get as simple or as complex as you would like to when it comes to Acumatica manufacturing. Now, what I'll do is I'll take you through an example. We'll use this one right here. It's a bearing unit that I have set up. And why don't we walk through an example where we place that on a sales order, and then we can actually go out and manufacture it. And I should have a sales order sitting out here waiting for us to go ahead and do some production against that. So if you are in a make-to-order environment, then your workflow in Acumatica might look something like this. Maybe you have your reps or your sales representatives entering sales orders, which is the part that I've already done here. So we see one sales order with one line item on it, pretty basic. But if you look down at the bottom of the screen, I can see that I don't have any of these finished goods on hand to sell to this customer. So I need to go out and do some production. And you can actually see that this line item has already automatically been marked for production. Acumatica can recognize when you do need to go out and build that. Or maybe if I needed to purchase the finished good or the components, I could mark for a PO instead. We are going to go out and create the production order. Now you're watching me do this in what I will call a one-off way today. I'm going from one sales order to one production order. If I wanted to do this in a batch process or an automated process, we have a screen called our Create Production Orders screen, which would look at all of the sales orders out there that are ready to have production orders created for them. Now, if you look, this is production order 84 that has been created to satisfy the demand of sales order 4984. So on my production order now, no dual entry is required. I have everything that has been carried over from the initial sales order for me. I see the finished good we need to create. I see the quantity. I'm also going to see that bill of materials that we started with. This is the default bill for this finished good. If I wanted to modify the revision, maybe make a revision B instead of a revision A, I could make those changes at this point in time. You will also have, and all manufacturers that use Acumatica Manufacturing will have an audit trail of their production. So when I look at this event history tab, it is showing me everything against this production order that has occurred at this or up until this point in time. So all we've done so far is create it. When I actually go through the process of releasing that order to the shop floor, that's just saying we're done planning, we're ready to start building it, I see a new line item appears that constantly keeps track of that audit trail for us. Really nice for production managers to be able to go back here and see, Jimmy overissued way too many materials on this order. What is going on here? Maybe we need to go have a word with Jim on the shop floor. Now over here on the totals tab, this is going to be, let me zoom a bit, this is going to be a picture of your job costs. So over on the left, based on that bill that we started with, here are all of our planned production costs. As we go through and perform production, we are going to start to capture our actual manufacturing costs, which will allow us to generate a variance for production if there is one in real time, which I can check as a production manager at any point. Now, let's have a quick discussion about how do we capture that actual labor. There are a couple of ways to do this in Acumatica. One is called backflushing. If you are familiar with the term backflushing, it essentially just means here are the $185 worth of components we planned on spending on this assembly. We know we always need the inlet, we know we always need the reservoir. Let's just backflush those materials instead of having to create a physical transaction to issue those materials. Assuming what we planned for is what we did. That's called a backflush, which results in no variance, right? What you planned for is what you did, so you would get a balanced out variance. You can also create material or labor issues in Acumatica, or material or labor transactions. So if I would like to create a transaction that actually says I used one reservoir, I used one inlet, and I would like to tell the system manually that this is what I used, enter the quantities, I can go ahead and do that. I could even do that from a scanning device. So we do have full shop floor data collection integrated from a scanner or the mobile app. Acumatica has a mobile app available in the Apple Store or in the Android Store, so you could download it right now if you would like to. And once you have an Acumatica instance, you can log in from that mobile app, and you could even capture your material and your labor transactions right from that app. Now, I'm going to use the backflush example here. So we'll say, you know, that $185 of materials, the labor that we planned on doing, we are just going to simply move this operation or complete that operation. I always thought move was kind of a funny term, but what it means is you are just moving from one operation to the next. If it was that first example I started with where I had an inspection on there, I could maybe say I'm done with assembly and I'm moving on to inspection. In this example that we used, I do just have the one operation. So all that's going to be required is this one move transaction to flush out the materials, flush out the labor, and assume that this work has been completed. Okay, so yes, we did complete the quantity of 1. If I maybe had a quantity of 10 on this order, but I only completed 5, I could also flush the cost out for those first 5 units and come back and do the other 5 later on. So you could do a partial production as well. Now, when I create this move transaction, we are going to see that our production order actually does get completed. Like I mentioned, because we moved out of the only operation in this example, we will see, and we completed the total quantity complete on there as well, we will see that the status of this production order has changed to completed. I will also see under my event history, all of those costs that have come in and the transactions that have come in from the move. So if you remember, we were backflushing those materials. So yes, even though I created a move, it backflushed my material costs for me. So now I have access to the material transaction that has actually been created against my general ledger. We all know ERP at the end of the day, the general ledger and the debits and credits is why we're all here. So mind, of course, that that's all happening behind the scenes. And then over here on my totals, I'm going to see that my planned are equaling my actuals, which is giving me no variance because I did a backflush here. Now, in the essence of time, I had about 20 minutes that I wanted to spend with you on this demonstration today. So that's really the majority of what I have time to go through. The last thing I just want to highlight, though, is what I mentioned earlier on in the demonstration, that we do have many optional modules. So material requirements planning, if you're looking to understand, you know, exactly when you need to purchase, this would be a screen that's showing you each one of those components out there that needs to be purchased, exactly when you need to do it. For any sub-assemblies or work orders, it would show you exactly when you need to manufacture those, and then you can create POs and work orders directly from this screen. We do also have full advanced planning and scheduling. So in other words, finite scheduling and infinite scheduling. So we can help you schedule your shop floor at the work center level, at the machine level, and even all the way down to the tool level at this point in time. Now, there's a lot more that we could show you with Manufacturing Edition. We could certainly spend hours here today.
All right, thank you, Jessica.